Hi there, and welcome to a very impromptu live, which I've still got Richard up the top there, by the way, but Richard's not with me tonight. You might know that basically we were doing a Carnivore Team GB on a Tuesday night. So I've got this bit free because we're not doing the Team GB. It's just little old me. So if you want to ask a question, that would be great. And I just wanted to go on because I feel like if there are some questions, then we could answer those questions. So, yeah, I have got one from Michelle. Now, she's saying that, good evening, Carnivore. It's very nice to see you. Can you tell me if taking creatine is of any benefit whilst eating carnivore to help make more muscle? I'm actually off to the gym now and I'll miss the live, so I'll watch the replay. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's something I'm not a big fan of supplementing. I think it has its place, definitely with electrolytes, definitely with certain vitamins and things like creatine, which is, something that you could add. There are sort of lots of studies about increasing your muscle strength and muscle power. It seems to be a well-tolerated supplement. Some people believe that it does improve their performance, especially with intense exercise, for instance. So it could be something that you'd find beneficial. Other people will quote studies about brain health, and it does improve brain health. So, yeah, I think that's the main things. If you're worried about your fluid balance, that's another thing. One of the things I always say is try not to drink unless you're thirsty. Don't do this 8 glasses of water. And that comes up a lot. If you find it difficult to manage your fluid balance, creatine is one of those things that helps with hydration status and thermoregulation. So if you're worried about heat as well. So it has its benefits. Like I say, I think if you're trying carnivore, I would just try to eat the food first and see if you adapt to just this way of eating. And then you could do the tweaks. So that would be my answer. So, Michelle, you're going to watch this on a replay, which is fine. Absolutely fine. But that was the question that was first up. And I like to do things in the order that, people have been bothered to get on and do their comment. So I like to do it in that sort of order. If you've got a question, just put it in the chat with a Q in front of it so it jumps out at me. And then I can jump straight onto that question. If you want to do a super chat just to support what we're doing, that's really good as well. So, like I say, haven't got my right-hand man with me today, it's a bit unusual, but then I do get to talk a bit more. I had a brilliant experience in the week. I spoke to Eddie Goki, and we did an interview for his channel, so I can't wait to see that, actually. One of the weirdest things I've ever heard, because he is so well-versed and he really knows his stuff inside out, was I actually went through a little bit about iron and ferritin, and we were talking about the fact that non-heme iron, so Fe3+, which is what you get from plants, when that enters your system, it goes into the enterocytes, but it has to go via the vitamin C ferroreductase enzyme. It needs a lot of vitamin C to be able to convert non-heme iron to heme, which is ferrous, the Fe2+. And he'd never heard this. So he was, I ticked a box there. It was very nice for Eddie to find something that he can go down that rabbit hole. But it's one of the things I often say when people criticize this way of eating, saying, well, you should have X amount of vitamin C. And that is, a valid question because it's out there. But the answer is we don't need anywhere near as much. And I've yet to meet a carnivore who is eating plenty of fresh meat. And they've got scurvy. I mean, 6 years, I'm nearly 6 years into it, nowhere near that. The symptoms of scurvy are bleeding gums, your teeth falling out, that sort of thing. So I don't think it's a big deal, vitamin C. In fact, on the bloods, LDH raising the lactose dehydrogenase can actually reflect sometimes that people have too much vitamin C. That's a bit of a nuance, and it's not in most blood tests. So it's an interesting area. Carney Goff is asking, what are your thoughts on dry fasting? Well, dry fasting, I think, is very effective. I wouldn't suggest anyone tries it without fasting first, just doing a water fast. And if you've never done any fasting whatsoever, I would ease into that as well. Not saying that the human body can't fast, because I think we were actually brought up we've evolved over hundreds of thousands of years where we wasn't eating 3 times a day. That definitely wasn't happening. And sometimes we weren't eating every day. So I think we're absolutely in tune to be able to fast. So that's the first thing. But like I say, I didn't convert until I was 50. So I'm 10 years into the low carb journey, 7 years into keto, 5 years plus in carnivore. And I wouldn't have believed that I could fast for a day when I believed in all the high carb stuff. You know, I really fell for all of that. So if you're looking at fasting, maybe firstly just look at, 16-8, they call it. So 16 hours when you're not eating and 8-hour window when you do eat. So, just to make it easy, let's say you eat at 12 o'clock midday and then you eat at 8 o'clock in the evening. So you've got an 8-hour window, and then you reduce that window. That would be a good way of doing that. And then you could go to maybe OMAD, 1 meal a day. So you're not eating for 23 hours and eating for an hour. And then you move into, a slightly extended fast. So you could do alternate day fasting. So you could fast for 24 hours and then the next 12 and then have a meal. So you're fasting 36 hours and you build up a little bit of stamina when it comes to fasting. I've got somebody that's trying to do a 5-day fast because they're looking for autophagy and improvements in their skin. So it's a good thing. The therapeutic fasting is very good. I think if you've got a lot of body fat, obviously you're going to help yourself there. But the question is about dry fasting. So I wouldn't do any of the dry fasting until I've actually become a little bit adapted to fasting in the first place. Now, water fasting is pretty straightforward, but dry fasting is literally no liquids, no foods, nothing. And it seems to be, and this is really rule of thumb, seems to sort of give you 3 times the amount of bang for your buck. So if you did 3 days of water fasting, then a dry fast, probably only need to do it for a day. I absolutely love it. I feel great when I do it, but it is definitely something you need to get used to. If you're on medications, you need to be very wary of your dosage. And if you're somebody that suffers from cramps or you've got kidney issues, then you've got to look at the hydration status and the net benefit, because we do need to be hydrated. But yeah, I think dry fasting is really good. Hopefully that has answered your question there. So Ribeye Rob, a big supporter. Thank you, Ribeye Rob. Good evening. All hit that like button, folks, and a £2 super chat. I know it sounds like a small amount, but to me, it means the world, actually. And if everybody could do that, it'll really be handy. I don't like being at the behest of the big tech companies. So the more I can get the super chats, the better it is. And I can get better guests on and improve the content, improve the lighting, improve the sound, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so great. So Carol, you've been on a few times and you've asked a few questions. I think you were in school, but you might have left, I don't know. But anyway, what do you think of omega-3 supplementation to reduce chronic inflammation? Still there, although reduced on carnivore? Well, I think it's something to consider, definitely. I don't know your full situation. So omega-3s are anti-inflammatory and omega-6s are inflammatory. So that's one of the things that you're trying to change when you have omega-3s. The ratio between the two is very important. I don't think it's a bad thing to try if you've got inflammation. There's other things you could look at first. Are you still drinking coffee? Or are you having any stimulants, any artificial sweeteners, or anything sweet, actually? So look at other things that possibly are causing inflammation. Try and take those out. Excessive exercise, intensive exercise, not recovering properly, not sleeping properly. So many other things that could be causing inflammation. So, but omega-3 supplementation, yeah, definitely ticks a few boxes for me. I recently tried some fermented cod liver oil, which had added butter, which is a thing that Western A Price was very big on. I would say when I was high carb, definitely cod liver oil reduced joint pain. I don't get the joint pain now, so I don't feel I need to supplement. But if you're new to it, Carol, which I think you are relatively new, it can take a while for the inflammation to totally go. But I would definitely look at omega-3 supplementation. That's good. Or increase your fish, for instance. If you like fish, then that's really good. A lot of people think of like salmon as fatty fish, but actually, it is a good source of protein, but also a good source of EPA and DHA, which are, really good fats to have because it's good for your brain health. It's also good for your flexibility. That's why cold water fish can wiggle because of the EPA in it. So, great question. Thank you very much. Hope that answered your question. So bacon of health. No coffee, no chewing gum. It's been 2 miserable days. I meant to say hello first, but then the other message was sent by mistake. So yes. Right. Let's have a look at the next one. Mark. Carnivore for 3.5 years. Occasionally add white rice. Oh, I know why you do that. It's very low in anti-nutrients. Right. 100 to 250 gram for muscle fullness. Can't without it. Vitamin C needed then, thanks. Why would that be vitamin C needed? Well, maybe But I know why you're doing the rice, because obviously you're going to retain some water and your muscles are going to look slightly bigger because of the glycogen and the pump from the rice. Personally, it's not something I would do unless I was, into the bodybuilding scene and really, it was really important to look on point all the time. But yes, if you can't gain muscle without, well, it might be that it's a visual thing and an aesthetic thing. And again, I'm not not anti anything. If it makes you feel better and you prefer how you look, then that's great. It's quite a lot of carbs to have, actually, 100 to 250 grams. Something I personally wouldn't recommend. But if it's working for you, you're working out really hard and you're thriving on it, then I would stick to it. But it's not something I would do personally. I'm a great believer in just being straight with people. I don't think this way of eating is about being militant and saying, no, well, that's not carnivore, don't do that. But I think we also need to be honest with how we feel. I wouldn't do that amount of carbs personally. Long-term systemic inflammation could be one of the things that will happen there. Obviously, if you are burning through all of this, you could be out training it for the moment. And that's pretty much what my story was. I mean, I got to my 40s and, advanced personal trainer. I'd won that tennis tournament there. I got these medals for running and all that. So, I was doing a lot of activity and I wasn't smoking, I wasn't drinking, but it all caught up with me by the time I was 40. I was just pre-diabetic, getting fat, and body composition was really bad. CAC score 639, so lots of bad things. Athlete's foot, stress spots on my forehead. It wasn't, it sounds like a personal ad, doesn't it really? Just trying to throw people off booking me. But, it's one of those things that I think you can get away with. But then, I'd love to see sort of what's happening with your insulin in the background, your fasted insulin and your glucose and your C-peptide, to see what's happening with your glucose management. That is just so much more carbohydrate than the body really needs. I know we haven't touched on the vitamin C yet, but you're talking about vitamin C to help with your intake of carbs. But, I would try to reduce that quite dramatically, to be honest. We need 4 grams. We need 4 grams of carbohydrate in our blood at any one time. 4 grams, a teaspoon. And we've got, 5 liters or 8 to 12 pints of blood, however you want to look at it. And, that's a lot. If you get people on the other side of the fence where they're looking at, I want to be under 100 milligrams per deciliter, and if all the influencers are saying be under 100, I want to get down to 80. Well, the difference between 80 and 100 is 1 gram, and they worry about that. And yet people are putting in 100 to 250 grams of carbs. So I think it's quite high. I certainly wouldn't do it myself, but right, I'm going to, the other side of the coin, I've already covered. Because if you're looking better and you feel you're getting more of a pump and it's, going to the gym is working for you with this way of eating, then I can't knock that. But I do think about the long-term physiological effects of it. I definitely would track your fasted insulin in the background as well, just to see what's going on. And then the thing is, as I was saying, I was talking to Eddie Goki and we were talking about the GLUT4 transporter is the one that gets all the fame because it's insulin dependent. And I was talking about the 11 GLUT transporters in general. I know there's 14, but most people talk about the 11. And let's go 14. 14 GLUT transporters. That's the glucose transporter that gets glucose into the cell. Well, you've only got one that's insulin dependent, and you've got 13 that aren't. And one of the things that the body does, it's really smart, it tries to get rid of all those carbohydrates, makes you thirsty, makes you urinate because it's diluting the concentration of blood glucose, making you excrete the blood glucose. And you also elicit the polyol pathway, which is why we get the people losing toes and getting, problems with their retina, nerve damage as well, because that once you elicit the polyol pathway, what happens is that glucose is taken out of the system, converted to sorbitol and also to fructose. And sorbitol is a sugar alcohol basically, and it draws water in. So like your opaque lens in your eye, and this is what happened to me, but this is the mechanism. My opaque lens had that water drawn in, and then it went cloudy, and I had a cataract. So then that was the pre-diabetic side of me. So although I felt okay and I looked okay and thought I was, I did a bodybuilding tournament. My body was getting rid of all this excess glucose. My stepfather had an amputation of his big toe, And that is also caused by the polyol pathway. And, that osmotic effect of sorbitol, for instance, draws in water to the blood vessels, and then you get peripheral neuropathy. So these things seem inoffensive, but over a long period of time, they might be damaging. But yes, you might need to take a bit of extra vitamin C if you've got that amount of carbs coming in. Wow. Bacon Health, massive congrats. I feel for you. I'm on my 6th day of quitting smoking. Well done. Well done. 6 days of quitting smoking. And I always use smoking as one of my sort of little jokes about when people say I eat a certain food and they know it's bad for you, Well, people don't smoke for their health. People don't drink for their health. They do it for the enjoyment. So giving up smoking, which is a big addiction, I take my hat off to you, actually. Right, let's go to the next question. I just want to check to see if there's any more super chats, because we always put those at the front. Let's go for the next thing. Tom J. Tom, it's time you changed your profile picture, mate, because I've been watching videos on YouTube and seeing you pop up on Bark K's or Carnivore Muscles YouTube, and I always recognize the picture. No, keep it, because obviously it works. I recognize the picture. But Tom, thank you very much for the continued support of not just my stuff, but everybody in the carnivore community. It's really great. Right, TLV. I've been trying to be 100% carnivore for over a year, but whenever I go 100%, I have bile issues. The only thing that helps is eating a banana after my meals. What are your thoughts on this, please? Yeah, it's a common hack. Yeah. Yes, I would say that some people find this helps them, just like a half a banana. Again, it isn't the banana, is what happens to the carbohydrates, how it raises your insulin and that sort of thing. But if you're having bile issues, I'd like to know what that means. So does that mean that you had your gallbladder removed? Does it mean that you're struggling with the fat? Because when you start, you can transition with a low-fat diet. You could look at a ribeye and think, well, wow, that's mostly protein, but there is fats in it. Or an egg is like 1-to-1. So you don't have to go really high fat like lamb, but you could go into a sort of leaner cuts when you start, and smaller meals with a bit more frequency. You don't have to do OMAD. We mentioned that earlier. And allow your body to slowly adapt. And it's just like anything. You're doing a workout for your digestive system and also for your production of bile, your production of stomach acid. Transition in a little bit slower. And don't just listen to the sort of glib, 1 meal a day is the best thing to do, or 2 meals a day is the best thing to do. What's best thing for you to do is what's important. What works for you? 3 meals a day might be the thing. Smaller meals, 3 times a day. And you want to look at things, we were talking about supplements. Taurine is a good supplement to increase your bile production. But I just think it's more a case of getting used to this way of eating and letting your body get to the level. I'm not a big fan of things like ox bile. They definitely work. Digestive enzymes, they definitely work. But what you're doing is you're exceeding your body's natural production. And it's a bit like, so I'll use a very bad analogy. If you're using a knee brace, let's say you've got a knee problem and you put a brace on it. Well, the brace is taking a lot of the stress. So the muscles and everything in the joint, the synovial fluid, everything is having this mechanical assistance. So it's not going to fully recover. And this is why when like soccer players, football players come back to a match, they're not match fit straight away after an injury, I should say. So they don't play the full 90 minutes. They might play 20 minutes, or they might have a runabout for 10 minutes at the end, and they've just got to get their match fitness back up. And they definitely really are managed now a lot better when they come back from injury, because, it's very expensive for a start to have a £250,000 a week player on the bench, but you certainly don't want him back on the pitch and then being off the pitch again for another 6 weeks. So everything's managed. You have to do it gradually, getting them back in. So your body is like that. So whatever it is, however you've been in the past, we've got to change that, and we've also got to increase all the good things. So that's what I would do. I would have a complete overhaul of how you did it. If after a year you were still having bile issues, and think, right, let's go back to basics. What's my why? What's the why that makes me cry? Why am I doing this? And secondly, what's the best way to do it for me? And that's what I would do anyway. Right, Matthew's here in the house. That's good. Thank you. And yeah, it's nice. Everybody watching is really good. Kayla, did the time change on this? No, it's Tuesday. You're right. what happened was we were going, we was doing Team GB, but it seemed like we were going to have a little rest from it and maybe do it twice a month or something, just to make it a bit more exclusive. And I had this section out in my diary, so I thought I'd do a live, I'll prompt you live. What are my thoughts on Viagra for erectile dysfunction? Are there possible bad side effects long term? Not really my wheelhouse. I mean, obviously it's nitric oxide and vasodilation is what's happening there. Viagra actually was discovered, it was designed to treat something else. Normally when you do a pharmaceutical, I think this is quite funny, typical bloke really, but there we go, it makes me laugh. They were studying another condition, and normally when you do a medical trial, at the end of the trial, you have to hand back the medications that you've been using. And the men were like, no, I think I'll keep this. They weren't handing it back. And it was subsequently found out that it was improving that part of the body function. So it was an accidental discovery. But anyway, what are the possible bad side effects? I don't really know. I will look it up for you. Viagra. Let's have a look, right? Because I haven't got any notes. What are the long-term side effects? What are the long-term side effects? Let's have a look and let's see if it's true what they say online. That would be the other thing, because Richard and I were trying to catch out ChatGPT live, and well, we did quite a few times, so we've given up on that. Now then, it's generally considered safe. This is what the mainstream says, but there are some problems. Vision problems. Viagra can potentially lead to non-anterior ischemic optic neuropathy, a condition that can result in permanent vision loss. So it's possibly something we were talking about earlier. Hearing loss, cardiovascular issues, and other side effects, persistent headaches. That is one, actually, I have heard, persistent headaches. But I think if you're going to be messing about with your nitric oxide production, then you will get those sort of things. So it's all medicated. All medications come with a raft of side effects. So it's about the net benefit. If Carnivore isn't improving erectile dysfunction, or it's not giving you your libido back, then I understand why people would look at this. So it's something that I would definitely say it's worth looking into, but definitely read the insert and be selective when you use it. But sorry, it's not really my stuff. When I started, this was 15 years ago when I started this, and I had to do all my qualifications to be on the GP referral list. Viagra wasn't really big, and we didn't study that. So I will have a look into it a bit more for you, Matthew, and we'll talk about it on school maybe. Right, here we go. And next one, Matthew, getting two in. Right, okay. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Keto Brain Health Conference. It was brilliant meeting you at the Carnivore Conference. What are you most looking forward to at the event? I can't wait to meet Chafee. Right, well, Anthony Chafee is really good. Yes, really, really very good. So, yeah, it's always nice to see Anthony. I will be working, actually, on a project, which I think if you were at the Carnival Conference, you know about. We're looking to make film, and with funding and stuff, I am actually the producer for the production company. And so I'll be doing a bit, making sure the interviews go smoothly. I think at the Carnival Conference, a few people didn't realize I was actually working and just thought I was floating around. But that's 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the evening, just making sure that everybody we wanted to interview was interviewed. Going back to the conference, what am I looking forward to? Just basically all the speakers. Zoe Harcum is always fantastic value. Always brilliant. Ivor Cummings, of course, is just amazing. I don't know what he's going to talk about. Ivor I have a soft spot for. When I started doing this 5 years ago, and I was on MeetRx, he was it still is, a very big influencer, and he had me on his show. So, I was nobody really, and we had a great conversation. So that was always nice to see. Who else? Let's have a look. Who is also speaking? Well, Heather, obviously. Let's have a look. Is speaking. I'm going to get it up. And Richard. How did I forget? Richard Smith. He's speaking. Yes, and I think that's going to be great. That's going to be really, really great. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what Richard's got to say. So yeah, that's fine. That's what I'm looking forward to. Keto Brain Health. And I think you can get £10 off if you use my code. All right. Is it 100 grams of rice or 100 grams of carbs from rice? That's a great point. I think, yeah. So 100 grams of rice is about 30 grams or 28 grams carbs. I think white rice is 25, something like that. So you're absolutely right, but it's still a lot of carbs. Yes. So I didn't read the question properly. You see, this is because I'm on my own. and trying to manage it myself. Let's go back to that question then. Was it 250 grams of rice? Occasionally add white rice, 100 to 250 grams for muscle fullness. Yes, so yes, you're absolutely right. Well spotted. Well spotted. But I'm quite happy to say I made a mistake there. Yes. Well, I still think 250 grams of rice is a lot. So you're looking at, maybe, let's round it up. Let's say it's 30 grams per 100. Well, you still need 4 grams of carbs in your bloodstream. So we're going 30 grams. That's a bit too much, I think. But if it works, like I say, if it works, it works. There's definitely a difference. You're absolutely right. Well spotted. Okay. Good morning from California. Good morning, California. Are you speaking for the whole of California? I've been to California. I loved it, by the way. Oh, Jonathan's in. That's great. Thank you, Jonathan. That's really nice that you've decided to support. So that's good. That's very good. Oh, by the way, actually, sir, going back to Jonathan, who has written the Bodybuilding Bible, I did an interview with Dr. Abs, and at the end he was quite surprised because I actually plugged Jonathan's book quite extensively in that. So I hope that's kept in the edit, Jonathan, and I think you'll laugh because I did definitely give it a lot of attention. Right, but it's a very long interview, so you'll get bored before you get to my plug. Anyway, Nina, I need an opinion, please. I was on Carnivore the last year, on and off, and gained weight. As I understand, it is a health optimization, but very hard to lose weight on it. Morbidly obese. Is it the best option? Well, that's a great question. Isn't that a great question? A really broad as well. Now, I would say most people don't come to Carnivore for weight loss. Or if they do, they soon change that opinion. This is from personal experience coaching a lot of people. And as Jonathan's in the room, he coaches a lot. I know he's very niche with the bodybuilding, but he might back me up actually with this. If they come for weight loss, they stay for the health benefits. I think that's what happens. And then weight loss becomes secondary. So whenever I do success stories, and I always say this to people when they do the success story, look, the thumbnail is going to be about the fact you lost 107 pounds because it's clickbaity. It gets people to look. It's not clickbait, because if that's the truth, the thing about clickbait is if you put a title and it isn't in the video, that's clickbait. But if it is in the video, then it isn't clickbait. It's factual that this person is going to talk about 107 pound weight loss. But normally what happens is they don't talk about that until the end, because they talk about getting off their diabetic meds or getting off their blood pressure meds or sleeping better, not having headaches, not feeling sick all the time. And then the side effect. So there is this thing where we often say you're healing your body before you start losing body fat, which also makes a lot of sense because that is the way the body tends to work. Why would it shed body fat, which is there for emergencies, when it's in an emergency state? So the weird thing about obesity, and like I say, when I trained, which is, 15 years ago, been obesity and diabetes specialist practitioner, the biggest thing I would say to people that were obese is you're malnourished. And they would laugh and say, well, look at the size of me. How can I be malnourished? And I say, well, you're not looking at the word nourished, really. You eat a lot of the wrong things and you don't eat enough of the right things. So when you start to eat enough of the right things, your body composition starts to change. But for some people, it's not instant. I'm coaching somebody at the moment who is stuck. They've lost a lot of weight and then they get stuck at a certain point. And I think there's other things going on. And luckily, because we're doing bloods and stuff, and also talking about other conditions, you see other conditions improving. So it can be very hard to lose weight. It could be because you're still eating the wrong things, which you think are all right, or maybe you're eating too much fat, or adding too much fat, so you're eating at the wrong time for yourself. There is so many things you could be doing that might seem innocuous, but actually they're not that great. So it could be eating first thing for you might not be great. So Richard, for instance, he eats late at night. I couldn't do that. I would be absolutely slaughtered by that. But I'm not great with breakfast either. So I seem to be really good eating in the middle of the day. The other thing is you could be having, sweeteners. You could be having not enough protein. So the protein leverage hypothesis comes in, the theory about the fact that if you don't eat enough protein, you keep eating until your body gets enough protein. So it could be that as well. So Nina, what I would do as a rule of thumb, and I know people hate this, but it is, if you're starting off, look at the ratio by weight 1:1. So an egg is perfect, pretty much, protein to fat 1:1 by weight, and just eat the whole foods. if your ideal body weight is, let's say, just to make the sums easy, it's 150 pounds you want to weigh, okay? Then eat 150 grams of fat and 150 grams of protein. As Kyla mentioned earlier, that doesn't mean 150 grams of steak. You've got to look at the fact that ribeye, 70% of that is water. So when you look at a ribeye, if it weighs 400 grams, you're going to get roughly 100 grams of protein. So it's all about those nuances. And, basically have a look at the way you're eating and what you're eating and when you're eating. Right. Let's have a look at this next question. This is great. Thank you very much. A fully laden swallow, which is a Monty Python reference for those that don't know. Hi, Stephen. To your knowledge, does fasting increase cortisol levels by much? Thanks. Now, yes, it does, but I've never had, and it's really frustrating, I've never had people doing the cortisol testing while they're fasting. So I can't tell you categorically, and I don't trust studies. I just don't trust studies anymore. So I prefer real experience. And I would love to have people fasting and also doing the salivary cortisol test to see what actually is happening in real people, average people. I'm an average person, just an ordinary person. I just want people that I deal with to do these tests. Right. But yes, fasting is a stress, but stress isn't always bad. You see, the stress has got such a connotation of, it's a bad thing, but it isn't necessarily a bad thing. Cortisol is there for a reason. I would want some cortisol if a tiger came into this room right now. I really want that because I want to run away and I want my blood sugar to be up and I want my alertness to be up. This is even when we get into anxiety. Anxiety is a physiological thing to make you make a decision. Right? So when people talk about, I've got too much anxiety, well, that's because we're now in a dysregulated world where we've got to make too many decisions. And also some of the things we want to do, we can't do because of social protocols. So in maybe, 500 years ago, if someone annoyed you, you'd throw a rock at them or you'd punch them in the face or whatever, you'd run away or you'd never deal with them again because you didn't have to. There was a bit more freedom if you were in the right strata of society, obviously. Well, now we've got all these stresses, the boss that annoys you, the person cutting you up on the street, on the road, banks being awful, all these things, your app's not working, your car's broken down, you got a roof that's leaking. I think you called it a roof that's leaking. But anyway, so it's all these things are stressors. Modern day life is stressy. You've got to pay the mortgage and stuff like that, pay your tax, all that. So blue screens, look at this. What am I doing this for? Idiot, eh? But yes, so cortisol is continually elevated because we're in this sort of stress situation. When you fast, that is a stressor, but it can be a good thing. It can be producing blood glucose that you might need. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think you have to look at it in context of how your fasting has gone and how it's made you feel and how you look afterwards and how you sleep. It's all contextual. So you could have alleged high cortisol when you fast, but you could feel the best you've ever felt because that fast has been amazing. That's why therapeutic fasting is so beneficial for so many people because it does so many other things. Lets your digestive system have a rest. So, yeah, does it raise them by much? I haven't got the data. Okay, and I just don't trust testing. So I can't tell you exactly, but it would raise it. I suppose the most basic layman's way would be when you fast, you feel a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. And I would assume that it's raising it too much, but too much, you can have too much of anything. I hope that's answered your question. I hate being vague, but I also don't like to tell you something I'm not 100% certain about without the data. But I'm really, really getting into the doing more case studies. So maybe we'll be able to cover that in future episodes. Right. Let's have a look at this question. This is really interesting. Real by Rob. Stephen Feldman et al. Regarding lean mass hyper-responders, say high LDL is seen in slim, fit and healthy people. I've heard Zoe Harcum and others suggest the body produces lots of cholesterol to repair a damage, indicating that if your LDL lipids are high, you might have lots of damage to repair. There's a disconnect. Can you explain? Am I missing something or do we simply not know? Now, fascinatingly, I was speaking to Nick Norwitz before I came on And I was actually interested in getting him on to YouTube. He's here now. Hang on. Just bear with me. Yes. Hang on. This is real. Yes. YouTube. And bizarrely, I'm actually doing this. I have a question about lean mass hyper. I have a question about lean mass hyper responders. Right. I am actually going to send him the link in case he wants to come on, which is a bit interesting, I think, don't you? Let's have a look at this. So let's get him on, maybe. So I'm going to get an invite. I don't know if he'll come straight on, but we will do it now. Let's have a look. It could be quite a laugh if he does come on. Yeah. So should we save that question? I don't know. Right. Well, let's get into it. Firstly, Zoe Harcum is brilliant, and Zoe will be at the Keto Brain Health thing. Let me just write to him, pop on for 5 minutes. Right. Okay. Whoever he comes on, I'm not, I don't know. Right. So yes. Right. Lean mass hyper responders. Well, let's talk about LDL in general. Right. So low density. Hey, here we go. Hello, Nick.
I am between a couple of courses, so sorry it's a little background noise in your atrium.
Okay. I think people thought I might have been teasing them that this question's come up and I would ask you on. So it's really appreciate you popping on. Really appreciate. Can I read you the question and then
shoot?
Let's do this thing, and I'll catch up with you later properly. So it was about LDL, and let me just get Ribeye Rob. Where have you gone, Ribeye Rob? Here we go. Right, excellent. Stephen, that's me. But we got Nick now. We got the main man. You're mentioned here in a way. Feldman et al., which is you, of course, regarding lean mass hyper-responders, say LDL is high LDL is seen in slim, fit, and healthy people. I've heard Zoe Harcum and others suggest the body produces a lot of cholesterol to repair damage, indicating that if your LDL lipids are high, you might have lots of damage to repair. There's a disconnect here. Can you explain? Am I missing something, or do we simply not know? What a great question.
Sure. I mean, I'm going to have to disagree with Zoe's claim about the etiology, the cause of high LDL and ketogenic diets. Now, I will be clear that there are many different causes of high LDL. Some can be you have a genetic mutation in a receptor. Others could be, some people are very sensitive to saturated fat, et cetera, et cetera. But when we look at the literature on people on low-carb diets, the major driver appears to be being leaner, where there's actually an inverse association between BMI and LDL change. So the leaner you are, the higher your LDL tends to go when you're low carb. In fact, we did a meta-analysis of the randomized controlled trials on people on low-carb diets, 41 RCTs. You can look it up. It was by first author Soto Mota et al., myself and Dave and others. And what you see is that actually you do the meta-analysis by BMI category. LDL does not go up if you have obesity or if you're overweight. In fact, if you have class 2 obesity, LDL actually goes down. It's particularly in the populations that are lean where LDL goes up. And we think that this is explained by something we call the lipid energy model, whereby when you're lean and insulin sensitive, that there is a more extreme transition from carb burning to fat burning when you go low carb, which is also seen by jumps in fatty acids when you say just do fasting in lean people versus overweight people, and that there's a recirculation of these fats through a cholesterol system. The cholesterol-containing particles, including the VLDL, LDL lineage, carry the fat fuel basically around the body. And so that the phenomenon is this pattern we see, a very high LDL along with very high HDL and low triglycerides, that constitutes the LMHR, lean mass hyperresponder phenotype we see. I am not aware of solid data suggesting that there's an increase in LDL, basically in VLDL, LDL production by the liver in response to inflammation and damage. Were that the case, we'd probably see much higher LDLs in the people with metabolic syndrome and obesity when they go low carb. But if you look at the human data, what you see is that the LDL tends to go up in people who are lean and insulin sensitive. I mean, Zoe's free to give her 2 cents, but that is my current understanding of the major driver of high LDL on low carb diets.
Yeah, is the delivery of energy in a lean person. I think the clue is in the title, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Well, in fairness, we came up with the title of the model. Well, actually, Dave coined it originally, so it's like a little bit circular there. But another thing I'll say, I think it's just important to emphasize, is there is a distinction between a mechanistic model explaining the phenomenon of why LDL is high versus conclusions that can be drawn about risk profiles. So it doesn't necessarily follow, even if it's totally normal and physiological and adaptive in an acute setting, it doesn't per se follow that there's no risk involved. I would say it's fair to assume, or it's unfair to assume there'd be the same risk profile as another person, say, with a genetic dysfunction in high LDL. So the point we're at is we need to understand, one, the mechanistic driver, which we're working on, but two, the risk profile, which, for any individual, I say don't gamble if you don't need to. It's a very, individual choice algorithm. Dave and I and our colleagues are very consistent that we don't know the risk profile. Even if we're right about the mechanism, which we could be in large part, it could still be a high risk profile. And I certainly would not exclude that certain lean mass hyperresponders could be at increased risk. A question then arises, and I'm teasing some data we have under submission, is if there are some lean mass hyperresponders on low-carb diets that have plaque progression and others that don't, what predicts the plaque progression? Because like any population, I would assume that low-carb people with high LDL, there are people that are going to have progression. But is it the actual LDL level or the ApoB level that predicts progression? Or is it something else? And if it's something else, that's really interesting. I won't divulge more because I'm alluding to data we have. We'll come out in time, but it's a good question. Thanks for that, Rabbi Rob.
Yeah, it's great. And I want to thank you. By the way, I was playing soccer before I came on. I'm not normally this glowing in red, but I came straight on. So Nick, I want to thank you for popping in. Just for everyone who watch it, I've been trying to get Nick on for a little while, but now he's in the room. I can say what I want to say because I can't say it in the text. When we did the Carnivore conference, it was revealed that I've been producing a film and getting funding to do a major documentary about the carnivore diet, but also extending it out to sort of health. And I'm trying to get people on board. We've got funding, which has surprised me because normally people like Netflix, Amazon, Apple, I can't tell you who, don't want to talk about these sort of things, but we seem to be in the right mix with the right people. And Nick, you are one of the people I'd like to get on board to talk to. Okay, you and Dave, that would be great. We are actually interviewing Zoe on Saturday and Dr. Chafee on Saturday. Sean Baker, there's a lot of people coming on board that we will want to speak to. And I've harassed, for the people out there, I've harassed Nick for many, many months.
Down sometimes.
But everyone's really busy, and I couldn't say it. But because people have been to the Carnivore conference, they've seen this is happening. Obviously, the cat's out of the bag. So I can now say. So anyway, if you need to go to your course, that's great.
No, I'm trying to get people coming out of an atrium. I'm trying to get to a quieter place so you don't get background noise. But please continue.
Yeah, I don't want to keep you longer than you need to be because I'm just
minutes. But I guess if you're asking me, would I like to chat around this topic? I absolutely would. I mean, to give people context to who I am, my background is cell bio and biochem undergrad to PhD in metabolism at Oxford, now at Harvard Med, and the whole social media thing is very new to me. I planned on being like an academician, a clinician, by nature, a little bit of an introvert, but I just got fascinated by metabolic health. And really, it's been this past year, so I'm quite newbie to the scene, where I've made the conscious decision to emerge. And because I like asking hard questions, I like these provocative questions, I like studying carnivore. I wouldn't necessarily identify as a carnivore myself, but that doesn't prevent me from asking what are legitimate and interesting questions. And the thing I find appalling is how conservative and defensive conventional medicine and conventional science can be, and all the double standards or unfair standards that we face. I will tell you, I actually think I might be now the most published person on a carnivore diet. I think there are only 3 papers. I could be mistaken on that, and if I am, apologize for not giving credit. But there's one on anorexia, there's one on inflammatory bowel disease, and then there was a survey of 2,029 people, I think, out of Harvard, actually by a mentor of mine, Professor David Ludwig. But the anorexia and the IBD papers I first authored. And I can tell you, there was, especially for the IBD paper, absurd barriers put in place. It was a retrospective case series of 10 patients. It's like, I'm just telling these patients stories. This happened. These patients are healed. And I just want to report on their stories and say, this is biologically possible. Here's the biological plausible explanation. And then these are the research studies we need to do. I make no firm claims. I'm not saying it's the best for all like humans or that extends longevity or any of that. I'm saying, here are interesting cases. Here's the biology that could explain it. We need to do more research. And the barriers that were put up to getting that published were absurd. It was just like, just let me tell these patients stories. There wasn't actually any issue with, there was no issue with the data. It was just like, there's so much phobia around having these discussions. Like if you even open the conversation and ask these questions, it's problematic. And I think there's a distinction between making extreme hyperbolic claims, which some people in the carnivore community do. I totally admit that. And saying this is a frontier and a powerful metabolic health intervention that can help people. And I think anybody who is a curious scientist should be curious in this topic of extreme diets. And anybody who's like a compassionate person, setting aside being a clinician, should just be like compassionate about the stories of real people who are healing. Now, I realize there's a selection bias, and I will have a selection bias, but that doesn't take away from the people like take the Michaela Petersons of the world who like really do, unless you say they're lying, and I don't think they are or have any reason to lie, they really healed with this methodology, this approach, this metabolic health intervention. We have to figure out why that is, because there are huge populations of people that are not being served by conventional medicine. Take inflammatory bowel disease, which I actually suffered with for a long time. And I had no quality of life. I went from being a competitive athlete and top academician to sitting in an ICU in palliative care, and there was nothing for me. Despite all the RCTs for the drugs I was trying, it just wasn't helping me. I went renegade and found something that worked. Not because there was an RCT on it, but because it worked. It definitely worked in me. And so I have to ask the question, is like, could this help other people? It looks like it can. And if it can, then we need to make it standard of care. The only way we can make it standard of care is by doing more research. And if you're blocking that research, then you're just like impeding progress of science, accumulation of knowledge, and helping real people. I'm not going to say it's a silver bullet for everybody, but people need to stop being obstructionist about having conversations around topics like carnivore. And at the end of the day, I just want to emphasize, I think we should just all want people healthy. And so if somebody comes forward and is like, I cured my inflammatory bowel disease with, a raw vegan diet, I'm like, great on you. I'm happy you're healthy. They say they do with carnivore, great. I'm happy they're healthy. It doesn't matter. It just so happens that in the current era we live in, there is a huge bias against keto and carnivore. So I appreciate that you're doing this documentary. It'll be very cool. And in any way I can contribute, you can tell I have a lot of energy and enthusiasm for this topic.
Brilliant. Thank you for coming on. I mean, I know you love people being curious. I know it's your catchphrase, stay curious. I wanted to just let you know, because for many years, I've had over a decade of doing private bloods, and I've written a book, and I've had some theories about high ferritin and some other theories. What is interesting is it's firstly joined up thinking, not listening to what's gone before, just starting afresh and thinking, can we look at this? But I get so many emails from biomedical chemists who are saying, I work in a lab. This is brilliant because it's never made sense to me. And there are more curious people out there than you realize, but they're not allowed to be.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't.
No, there are a lot of, I guess you could call them atheists in the clergy. Like even around our lean mass hyperresponder phenomenon, you'd be surprised how many people like residents and attendings at Harvard are interested or are themselves lean mass hyperresponders. But it's just like, if it's not your field, you just don't want to go out on a limb. And I'm not criticizing that. I understand it. Like me, let's say, on social media, there are topics that I feel very passionate about, but they're not my sphere. If they're not nutrition or they're politics or, like human rights, things like I can feel very strongly about them, but I don't want to mix topics. So I'm not holding it against people, but there is a discrepancy between what you see on social media and like what you hear behind closed doors, especially in academia. So like the research we're doing, there's a lot of excitement about it. Actually, in academia, there's a lot of like, yeah, we want to see what happens and we want to support it, but you get a different filter through social media. So I have confidence in the momentum of the work we're doing. And honestly, in research of things like ketogenic diets, carnivore diets, I think it's going to be pushed forward. It's just going to take a little bit of time and legwork and honestly playing the game. And thankfully, I'm someone who has figured out how to play the game by this point. I'm young, but I don't stand on ceremony. I just want you there's a whole meme going about it. Like they call me some dude on Instagram because I did the egg thing and they just knew me as some guy. I love that. I want to be some relatable dude. At the same time, I have a PhD from Oxford. I'm going to have an MD from Harvard. I did the Ivy League thing. I know how to play the game. And I also know the practicalities of playing that game and leveraging those optics, those tools to get the ends I want. And I will very transparently. So anyway, I probably should run to my next thing, but thanks for letting me drop in for a sec.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming on. Cheers, mate. Stay curious.
Stay curious.
There you go. All right. That was a nice surprise. All right, let's go into the next question. We haven't got long now. So I've explained why I'm a bit red. I do play soccer and I have a bit of coaching. Right. Tom J, thank you very much. Tom, thank you. Stephen, your interview with Heather was great. Very interesting to see how different people have different macro requirements. Yeah, I just feel like that we need to be talking about individuals. And that's what I was trying to say to that lady earlier, who Carnivore didn't work for her because of her bile production. There's so many different things you can do to change the way you change your body. I've just done an interview with the fabulous Coach Becky, by the way, if you want to see that. And she's got a completely different take as well. So there you go. You want to see that interview? It's out today and you'll see another take. The thing is, I'm happy to get all people in from all different types of eating, really, and it just makes the conversation better. Carnivore Muscle Coach Stephen put in the work at the Carnivore Conference. He set up the secret thing beautifully. Thank you very much. If you're still there, Jonathan, I don't think you will be. Your talk was fantastic, wasn't it? So there you go. Let's have a look at the next thing. I'm trying to find a question. We should have a cue in front of it. I've overdone my half an hour. Right, let's have a look. We haven't got any more questions, really. I'm looking now. So let's have a look. Right. Rabbi Rob has got a question, I think. Hi, hello, Dr. Abs. I watched your vitamin D3 video today, thinking of ordering K2 soft gels. Any suggestions on a brand of vitamin D3? Wow. Well, Abs is in the chat. I could send him the link and he could answer. I mean, one of the things is I've only got 4 minutes, really. So I should have had Abs on, shouldn't I, really? Because he's popped in the chat and now everyone wants to talk to Abs. Maybe I'll hook up with him in the week and we'll do another one. I mean, I think vitamin D3 and K2, I have a link in the description to British Supplements and they do a pretty good mix. D3, K2. I had my D3 results, by the way. I will actually put them up, because I did a load with, I used a fermented cod liver oil, and I think I might be able to find my latest D3. I don't know. I haven't got it. I'll do it another day. You know, I mean, vitamin D3 is a really interesting hormone, I think, rather than a vitamin. I think we could talk about that quite a lot. So, for instance, CRP, when we're talking about blood, C-reactive protein is what's called a positive phase reactant. So when you've got inflammation, your CRP goes up, and whatever you eat, that's pretty much nailed on. So you call that a positive phase reactant. Vitamin D3 or hormone D3, however you want to name it, is a negative phase reactant. So if you get sick, you get lower D3 levels. There's a lot more to that mechanism than meets the eye from just speaking there, but it is fascinating when you get into it. So I am going to call it a day, actually, because I don't think I can get Abs on this time of night. So it was great that he popped in to say hello. Pretty dark. All right. I know what that is about as well. I won't get him on. My lighting, he was talking about my lighting, isn't great. But you do see how glowy I am from the football. Look at this. And I think it is time to go. So thank you, everybody, for watching the live. I will speak to Dr. Abs because he seems to be very popular when he comes on. I mean, Dr. Abs, did you want to answer for 5 minutes? Did you want to come on? Just put it in the chat. I'll send you the link if you like. I've just sent it to Nick there, but I think everyone's going now because I've said I'm going off. So, right. Okay. We will see you soon. Happy to pop on. Right. Okay. Right. Well, I'll send the link to you. Just bear with me a second and then we'll do that. So let's see if I've got that link already on my phone. I think I have. No, I haven't. Hang on. Bear with me. At least you know it's a real thing here. And bear with me. So just get rid of that. We'll do it live. Talk amongst yourselves, folks. So here we go. Dr. Ab. We've got that, copy that link, and then we'll go into him there, put it in there. We might get him on. Right. I'm back with you, folks. Now let's get him on if we can. StreamYard, here we are. So I've sent him the link, and we're going to have Dr. Abs on. Dr. Abs, look at that. Oh, with a big coat. Wow. Hello.
Come back in.
Right. Where you been?
It's been out for a steak.
Right. Was it nice?
Yeah, but 1.2 kilos. Can't complain. Plenty there.
Yes. When is a steak bad? I mean,
exactly. I'll get one.
You seem to have generated a lot of questions by just being in the chat.
I noticed. I'm very taken aback by that, and I take it as a compliment. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Well, we did the soft gels one, didn't we? What's the next one?
Yeah.
Let's have Dr. Abs, NAD plus, NADH, or NM as a supplement.
It's a good question. First of all, the purpose of them is to increase the NAD level, the NAD plus level. So you have to ask yourself, okay, which increases the level by the most? Now, NAD plus increases it by the most because it is the thing that you're trying to increase. There's no conversion needed. So let's say you put in 50 milligrams, you're going to get 50 milligrams coursing through you. And if you put in 50 milligrams through a particular pathway, like, for example, oral spray, something, then you've got 50 milligrams minus the amount lost to get through that pathway, but you haven't lost any for conversion. Now, if you take the others, let's say NADH, which generally you don't get, it's generally NR or NMN, where you can get dihydro now as well. They are, number one, let's say you put in 50 milligrams again, you'll get 50 milligrams minus the pathway to get to that particular place. Usually if it's oral, the gut microbiome and things and the digestion process, and then minus the conversion process as well. So you can't put a number on it. It's impossible because everyone's got a different gut microbiome. So there's no control in this sort of studies. So it's going to be some amount less. Now, in my clinical experience, I am part of a team now where we are, I think, the biggest user of NAD plus in the UK and possibly the world as well. I'll put it this way. We need so much. We now have to buy a factory because there's no factory in existence that can supply enough. So we've got a tremendous amount of experience in this. And I would always say the NAD plus directly, 100% without a shadow of a doubt, by a country mile, is the best one. How do you do it without conversion? You take it pure. How do you do it without loss through the metabolic pathways, through digestion and catabolism? You inject it into the subcutaneous fat. So you pinch your fat. Let's pretend this jacket is the fat. I'm pinching it, and then the needle goes into my fat. Just like a type 1 diabetic injects the insulin into themselves, there's no difference. The instrument itself is the same. The positioning is the same. Part of the body is the same, etc., etc. But you're putting in NAD plus. Now, it can be miraculous, very spontaneous, as Stephen just said, but I'm doing a course on NAD plus December 1st. No sales, no sponsorships, no companies allowed, no brands. It is purely scientific. You can go to my YouTube channel community page if you want to see that, or you can go to my website, drabs.clinic, or my Instagram, Dr. Abs. Stephen may possibly be there. He may grace us with his presence. I'd love to see him there if possible. But me, NAD plus all the way.
Yeah, I've got to support you, Dr. Abs. I mean, man, did we answer the soft gels question, by the way?
I answered it incorrectly. I mistook that as Rob asking for K2 recommendations. So I said Life Extension Super K. And for vitamin D, the brand that I personally use, I'll hold it up to camera here. When I say I use, I don't mean I actually take it all the time. It's a backup if needed. But I thought we flip on camera, or maybe not. Nature without the E on the end.
Nature.
And then plus. I don't know if the microphone is in the right place there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Cool. So Nature Plus, NATUR Plus, and you can get a big bag of these. I think that was about 1,000 for like £10, maybe just a little bit more, which is absolutely nothing. Store it, in a nice, cool place. You don't want things to peroxidize because it is an omega. It is an oil at the end of the day, a fatty acid. So that's the brand if needed. I think me and Stephen would both say Sunshine is better. But if you need a supplement, so I travel a lot. I was in New Zealand recently. I spent 26 or 27 hours on a plane, no Sunshine. So I took it in that situation, and I think that's okay. But typically, Sunshine is best. Failing that, a supplement like that from that brand, I would say. Yeah,
it's a huge subject, vitamin D, and it's something I will do a bit more on, actually, because there's a lot of nuance to it, I think. Let's have a look if we've got any more news here. Oh, yeah, here we go. Wow, hair transplants. Mark Jones, Dr. Abs, hair transplant 6 days ago. Any peptides or subs you recommend? I'm taking TB500 and BOC 157 at the moment for tendon heal. Thanks.
So I think he means BPC. That must be a typo. It must be BPC 157. BPC, if you're going to take it, I would suggest you're not on it like continuous, depending on your height and body weight and things like that. I would guess maybe something along the lines of 30 days, give it a rest. Instead of peptides and supplements, what I would actually recommend is you use LED therapy, because the whole point of peptides and supplements is that you improve the cell function. But if you use LED, what you're doing is you're taking like a pair of tweezers or a pen, and you're reaching inside the cell, and you're actually just moving things around, which is what we want the cell to do by itself, but we can actually give it a push. Now, theoretically, if you could actually do that with a pair of tweezers, you'd fail, because the moment you open the cell up, it's dead. But LED is using radiation to go in and move things around while the cell is still intact and living, which is what makes it so incredible and unique. If you were to get an LED device, and the one I recommend if people watch my channel is the Style Pro LED mask. I have no financial gain or conflict of interest in recommending that. But the reason I recommend it is because it's so cheap at £99, and it will still last years. And I believe it is the most powerful LED mask in the world. Now, if you get that and just leave it on top of your head, appreciate you might look a bit odd to your whoever you live with, but if you leave that on top of your head, put it on the anti-aging setting, so you get the red and near infrared together. I'm sorry, but that's going to give you way more improvement than any peptides or supplements, because that's the actual cell itself on your head improving function way more than anything like that. And if you do that regularly, even like a couple times a day, continuously, you'll be amazed at the quality of improvement that you get, and not just the healing, but the actual cell function once it's healed as well.
Brilliant. Okay. There's a subject here that someone wants to ask about. I think it was meant for Nick, but I'm happy to talk about it. While he's on, I do think you're talking about Nick. Can you go over fact that is hitting popularity currently? And that is Nikki, I think, is asking that. Becky it is, isn't it? Yeah, sorry. So C15 is an odd chain fatty acid, and I have a thing about odd chain fatty acids that I often say, and it bores people senseless. But it's all well and good what's happening at the long chain, but once you get down to the 3-carbon fragment at the end of the chain, that will go to your liver and produce glucose. It is loved by the body. So this is one of the reasons why dairy puts fat on people. Yes, many people go into the casomorphins and the fact that it's addictive and you have lots and lots, and once you eat a little bit of cheese, you eat a lot of cheese and all that. That may be true, but also the mechanism of gluconeogenesis is definitely triggered by the 3-carbon fragment at the end of the chain, because the body is smart. It sees that, and it is really easy for the liver to metabolize that into glucose, and it's smart, so it will do that. So that's my little bit. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Abs.
Not massive. I mean, it's new. I don't think anyone really has any significant amount of research on the topic. There are suggested potential health benefits, and I say suggested because, like I said, I don't think there's any hard, significant evidence for it, but we think there might be some stuff. So some people would say it's anti-inflammatory, which, again, I don't know. You'd have to look at what the cause of the inflammation is. So that's really hard to study. Theoretically, it could help lower markers of inflammation, but again, markers are completely different to actual inflammation as well. So take that with a pinch of salt. Some people will tell you it can improve things like insulin sensitivity and maybe help regulate blood sugar levels. I have heard that before, but I think, well, regulating blood sugar levels is done by just not putting sugar in your mouth at the end of the day. So there's no point studying that, frankly. I've also heard that it can positively influence lipid profiles. So increasing things like the HDL. But the thing is, this is generally said by people that call it good cholesterol and bad cholesterol as the LDL. And anyone that says that, I think you've got to take that with a pinch of salt as well. So I'm not fully convinced on all these things personally. And even if there is some benefit in these things, so what? Doesn't mean you're going to just eat C15. You're still going to have whole foods, and which in this diet is whole meat and things like that. So what difference does it make if it has these properties anyways, is my opinion.
Yeah, I must admit, when I look through studies, if it starts with good cholesterol, bad cholesterol,
yeah,
I tend to groan and think, I really want to read this, but that's already put me off, because you know where these people are coming from. And I hate to say that, because I want to be open-minded. Right, a couple more questions. Can you see me? It's very dark here, isn't it, Dr. Abs?
Normally I would say no, but you've got this post-football glow, Stephen.
Yeah. Really. Read by my face. Right. Do we need to take iodine? Lugol's 5% solution. Dr. Bright and Dr. Brownstein suggest we do, due to seafood having possible toxins.
So my opinion on this is, you'll never know what your body is thinking. I mean, even the question itself is technically invalid because the body doesn't have its own brain, but you get what I'm trying to say. And because of that, you'll never know the exact factual answer of yes or no, or maybe in this amount. But you can test it. Stephen, I'll leave Stephen to talk about iodine clearance tests. He is far better qualified to talk about that than I am. But I would also suggest people look at the idea of iodine supplementation, not just as drinking these drops or taking iodine tablets. You can just rub it on. If your body needs it, it will absorb it once it's been rubbed on. If it doesn't, it won't absorb it. And that for me is probably the simplest, easiest, cheapest, most convenient way of checking whether you need to take it or not. And guess what? If the answer is yes, you don't need to do anything extra because it just gets absorbed. I think Phil Escott did the same thing when he was treating his mother's breast cancer. He actually rubbed the iodine on to see whether it was absorbed or not, which is a very, very sensible thing to do. That's my view on how to work out if you need iodine.
Yeah, and I think that's analogous to the magnesium spray. Same thing. You spray that on. If it's itchy and irritable, you are actually low in magnesium. That's pretty much what it says. Yes, you're right about the clearance test. If people don't know what that is, you can do an iodine clearance test. I think it's easier to just rub it on your skin. But if you want to know and get more numbers and empirical data and all that, you have a drink, and let's say it's got 100 units of iodine in it. You drink that drink, and then your urine is analysed over the next 24 hours. And if you urinate out 100 units, I'm being very layman's here, but 100 units of iodine, then you're not deficient because your body has not held on to it. It isn't exactly like that. And we do get percentages, and, there's a lot of arbitrary decisions to be made. But in the end, it's going to tell you pretty much if you're deficient in iodine or not. Right. Mark, I think a follow-up question. When could I start using the LED?
So you can, if you get that particular one, there's a setting called recovery, which basically is mostly near-infrared, which is going to be very anti-inflammatory. That you can use straight away. Go for it. When the inflammation has reduced visually, so the redness has gone and you look a little bit mostly sort of normal, shall we say, for want of a better word, then you can change it to the anti-aging setting and go with mostly red with some near-infrared as well.
Brilliant answer. Okay, that's great. Extra time. Matthew's saying we've got extra time. Yes, we have got extra time. But as with all footballers, it has to come to the end. Maybe we'll try penalties now and see if we can score a visual penalty. Right. Dr. Abs, that's brilliant. Maybe I'll ask you on. We'll do another impromptu one in the next few days or whatever time. Yeah, that's great. Your thing in London, can people buy tickets now already?
They can indeed. Website is drabs.clinic, or if you go to my Instagram, you can see the post on there and have a look as well. It's both for the public and health professionals, people who want to use it themselves at home, and also clinicians who want to administer it to patients. I don't believe education should be just for people in particular jobs. I think ideally it should be for everyone. So anyone is welcome to attend. The teaching, as if you've ever seen me teach things before, will be in analogies that children in school can understand. So I'm not going to try and use technical terms to make myself sound clever. It's going to be a sort of democratization of the use of this fascinating molecule.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I hope everyone's enjoyed it. Nick Norwitz, Dr. Abs, and me. I mean, we've done well, haven't we, in an hour and 15 minutes?
Stephen's well connected.
Thank you very much. I'm going to shut the stream down now. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. You want to add a super chat, that really helps, but you don't have to do that. Make sure you have a look on Dr. Abs' channel and subscribe there too. And as Carnivore Muscle was in, don't forget to look at Carnivore Muscle's channel. Give him a like, share, and subscribe also. So it's great. And we'll see you soon. Thank you very much indeed for watching.